Welcome to the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis. Join hosts Aaron Smith and Jimmy Young as they dive into the pulse of the cannabis industry, featuring weekly guests who break down big topics like standardization, evolving regulations, and exclusive member spotlights. Get informed, get inspired. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron and Jimmy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast. I am the founder of WPCM TV and also the executive producer of Cannabis Coast to Coast News. My name is Jimmy Young, and every week we've been joined by Aaron Smith, the executive director of the NCIA. And this week we're so happy to welcome back Bethany Moore, who was actually in this chair for a lot longer than I've been in this chair as the co-host of this show. So Bethany, first of all, great to see you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of fun hosting NCIA's podcast for 6.5 years, I think. Yeah, it was great.
And in cannabis years, Aaron, how long is that?
A lifetime.
That's right. And I should also say that this podcast is supported and sponsored by Buds Group, a consulting group in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. They used to be Accounting Buds, and now they're Buds Group because they do more than just accounting consulting. And also by the Maverick PR Group out of Colorado. So those are our two supporting sponsors, and we thank them both for that. Aaron, I'm going to give you the first word here because we just played for both of you the advertisement that is airing on the Fox networks, okay, that the SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana Group, a prohibitionist group headed by Dr. Kevin Sabet, are using to keep cannabis at Schedule 1, urging Donald Trump, the president, to not reschedule it. So, Aaron, you saw them. I saw them. It turned my stomach. What's your reaction?
Well, it's wrong on so many levels. I mean, we're here advocating for a legal industry that is constrained by massive state regulatory framework in every state, and hindered by 280E, which is an unjust provision of the tax code that's kept the legal industry from moving forward. And here you have Project Sam saying that we're trying to help Chinese drug cartels, which those cartels are only involved in the illegal side of the industry by their very nature, not the legal industry. It would be the most absurd thing for an illegal drug cartel to get involved in such a tightly regulated industry. They're better off running dry cleaners or laundromats or just about any other type of business than the most tightly regulated industry in the country, the cannabis space. So it's laughable, but unfortunate that's out there and resonating, I'm sure, with some corners of American politics.
Absolutely. At least half, anyway, because that's how this country is divided in half. If you say anything political, you're going to piss off half the country one way or another. Bethany, I'm not asking you to piss off half the country. I'm asking you to get your reaction, however, to what you just saw.
Sure. Well, I'm definitely not an international policy or economic expert by any means. But watching that commercial just seemed like, wow, that is a stretch. And like Aaron said, just not true and doesn't make sense. It's a scare tactic. I can see how they're trying to get the messaging around how it's taking something away from Americans in some way, shape, or form. But, to not reschedule cannabis takes the legal industry that we've built away from Americans. So the logic is just there's a lot of gymnastics you got to do to come to the same conclusion as Project Sam.
Absolutely. And here's the thing that bothers me as a media person. It is one side of the equation. There is no balance. And that's what has always bothered me about the media, because they are looking for reasons for the industry to stub their toe. So they have another thing that they can put on their 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock news and get ratings, because that's their job, is to report the news in order to maximize their audience. However, they're also supposed to offer balanced reporting. It's another reason why they don't want to have anything to do with me, because I'll admit I'm not balanced when it comes to reporting. I'm actually trying to give the industry a fair shake and give them an opportunity to tell their side of the story. But if let's just say if the NCAA wanted to run a counter ad to that ad, Aaron, no station in America would take it. Am I right or wrong on that?
Well, I don't know. We don't have the funding to run an ad like that. So to be
That
honest,
tells you something right there. Right. Yeah.
that in itself is a problem, right? But the SAM is a very well funded, mostly by the treatment, the forced treatment industry, as well as the pharmaceutical industry, and is shoving these lies down the throats of Fox News viewers. And I think that what's so sad about it is that it's completely backwards, in that cannabis being illegal is only handing the market to the Chinese or Mexican drug cartels or other domestic illegal operators. I don't want to just be pointing at other countries, because that's also trying to kind of play on this, the xenophobia strain that's running through the country right now. So, but by making it legal, that problem goes away. There's a reason that there isn't an illegal trade in beer in this country, and hasn't been since the 1920s. And that's exactly what we've been trying to do. And I sometimes feel sorry for Project Sam, because while they are well funded, they are on the wrong side of history. Something like 70% of Americans disagree with their viewpoint, and that number keeps growing. And the number of states that are moving forward on marijuana legalization keep expanding. So it must be a bad place to be if you're Kevin Sabet right now. And this is a dying last gasp.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Bethany, as someone who's actually seen this whole movement probably from the beginning to where it is now. It's fascinating to me that the whole point of legalization and testing was to get rid of the illicit legacy market. And now you've got the prohibitionists out there basically saying, "Oh no, you're basically funding those illicit markets from other countries." It's nuts right now, isn't it, Beth?
Oh, absolutely. We, over the last more than decade, um, from medical programs to now adult use, recreational, we've built real businesses. Mom and pops have, thrown their money together and created brands in this legal regulated industry. We've created jobs, and these are tax paying business owners. They often give back to the community. Speaking of taxes, we're certainly still under Section 280E of the IRS tax code. So we are paying heavy, heavy taxes. We're contributing to the American economy.
Absolutely. And let's clarify the taxes. The industry isn't actually, part of the expression, bitching about the taxes that they have to pay. It's the fact that it's unjust. It's the fact that they're not getting the same treatment of every other business, that any other business in America has no problem writing off regular business expenses to run their business. But the cannabis
Sure.
industry can't do that. That's unjust. That's unfair. And it is the thing that makes me the most mad. Aaron, I know it does for you too.
Yeah, and it's a provision of the tax code that was never intended to apply to state legal businesses, that weren't even conceived of in, I think it was 1982 or 84. When this law passed, it was intended to apply to illegal drug dealers, because I think there was one high profile case where somebody had deducted their uh their
Not.
their yeah, their boats or their guns. I don't know. Right. So this isn't happening on any real level. I think most drug dealers, illegal drug dealers, aren't filing taxes. Or if they are, they're not filing as a drug dealer, they're filing as some other phony business. It's only the legal industry that is telling the IRS exactly what it's doing, and signing up to have a license with the state government that puts a microscope on everything they do. So these are not the people that Congress ever intended to punish. And instead, we've created a system that actually incentivizes working outside of the legal program, because you don't have to worry about 280E if you do that. You don't have to worry about licensing code regulations at the state level or any of these issues. So that we need to be moving in the exact opposite direction of where Project Sam's trying to take this country.
Absolutely. And is it any coincidence at all that the DEA actually released new data this week on cannabis enforcement tracking Chinese grows for the first time? Is that a coincidence that it came out the same week that Project Sam released this video campaign? Come on, guys, let's face it. Project Sam has an in with the
Yeah,
DEA.
I would think not. I don't really know, but I would think not. And I'm not one for conspiracy theories, as you know, Jimmy. But I this but this this is we do know that they have an in with the DEA based on the documents that were discovered during the rescheduling proceedings earlier this year. It's we know that there are career DEA professionals that don't want to see rescheduling, and this only makes sense. That said, there are illegal drug cartels operating in this country. Some of them are from China, some of them are from other places. That's not, that isn't a lie in itself, but the lie is that it has anything to do with the legal industry. That they are working in the margins where cannabis is still illegal. And so if we can close that gap and ensure that the whole industry is legal, that pushes them out and it solves the problem.
Another thing to add to all of this is that the legal regulated industry in the United States also prioritizes, hence why the agencies are putting that microscope, they're prioritizing consumer safety. We are There are checkpoints from the time you put the plant in the ground to the time it's on the shelf going to the customer, to ensure consumer safety of that product that humans are consuming, in order to feel better, whatever that looks like for each individual. So illegal cartels are not lab testing typically their products.
No, and they don't have recalls if there's mold on them. Okay, which
Oh, yep, great point.
right? I mean, come on. It is what it is. It's been an illegal industry for a long time. Everybody kind of knows how to deal with it when it's illegal. It's when it's legal and following the rules and doing the right thing that has been the biggest challenge and the biggest bugaboo for this industry to succeed. You mentioned the seed to sale tracking, and it is absolutely boggles my mind that the government continues to make it as difficult as possible for anyone in this industry to survive. And we're seeing it again, and it's following the money, because now the pressure is moving away from you lobby folks, and it's moving directly into the White House and going after the president, Donald Trump, because everybody recognizes he has the power, and he loves that power, to do whatever the heck he wants to do. And if he decides it's time to reschedule this plan, he'll pick up the phone and call his disciples in Congress or wherever and get it done. And now, speaking of the DEA, even a former DEA admin named Derek Maltz, I'm sure you guys have heard that name before, came out today and basically hinted that, yes, he's going to do this. He doesn't like the disconnect between the federal laws and the state laws. How long has that been going on, Aaron?
We've been hearing that for a long time, but I'm optimistic that we will see some action out of the Trump administration that's positive in the coming months, if not, maybe a year. I don't know though. I don't have a crystal ball. There's so many other priorities that are out there. This one is not at the top of the list for either the Trump administration or the Democratic Party for that matter. So this is something that we as advocates need to keep pushing it up the priority list. I'm optimistic that there's definitely hope that he will fulfill his campaign promises by moving forward with rescheduling in some way, shape, or form.
Just put a tariff on Chinese cannabis, right?
Well, why not? He's got a tariff on everything else. And
Exactly.
that being said, Aaron, you mentioned the word priority. It's in the news again. Okay. And I'm going to take everybody back to May 7th, 2025, when Terrence Cole, the current DEA head dog, if you will, head administrator, in the confirmation hearings, was asked by Senator Alex Padilla from California. So where are we with the rescheduling process? And what did Terrence Cole say? Oh, it's a priority for me. And then last week he puts out a memo of his top 10 priorities, and the word cannabis was not on there. It was our lead story on our news this past week. Bethany, does any of this surprise you? You've been dealing with the whole communications thing in the lobbying world of Washington, D.C. for longer than me. Does any of this surprise you?
I lived in DC in my 20s and then had the pleasure of working with NCIA for a decade, where we went to DC every year, multiple times. And yeah, that's how the sausage gets made. It's not a pretty process. So no, nothing surprising. It's all smoke, mirrors, circus acts, throw in whatever metaphor you want of just complete absurdity. Nothing makes sense the way that we want it to in a logical world when it comes to lawmaking, policy, anything happening at the state and federal level. It's frustrating, but that's why this is a long game. And we talked a lot at NCIA about incremental changes versus comprehensive changes. And while we want to get everything we want all at once the right way, that's the percentage of that being successful and happening is so low. But making small baby steps, incremental changes along the way is one way to sort of feel better about why we're doing this and why everything seems to take so long and why it feels like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain. Um, it's the nature of the beast.
And yet there's still hope. And that's what I always say this about Aaron. He's an optimistic person. He wants to look at a problem and figure out the best ways to go at it. It wasn't too many years ago. I remember the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas writing a memo basically saying, we've got a problem in this country. The federal laws say one thing and the state laws say a completely other. And what are we going to do about that, right? Aaron, you remember when he put that out? And of course, it made sense to anybody in the industry because we knew that you've got legal states for a federally illegal product. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah, but and backing up to Bethany's point about this being a long game, I agree with that. It's absolutely right. And when you look back at, like, I've been looking back a lot at my past 20 years, and I know Bethany's been doing this as long, just about as long. You actually see incredible progress. It's unbelievable.
Right.
So it's very you have to be able to step back and get out of the everyday, day-to-day grind to look back and see the progress we've made. Otherwise, it is very frustrating. But when you do that, it's quite gratifying. And I'm doing that from this vantage point as I leave the organization and move on to, a different movement. And I really want to encourage everybody involved in this, whether they're, and even if you look back at the last 5 years, it's incredibly gratifying. You don't have to be in it 20 years, but the longer the time span, the more of the accomplishments that we can celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, almost 20 years ago when I got started in my advocacy, we were just really trying to protect patients from going to jail for
Yeah.
using medicine that made them feel better. So thinking from that standpoint and fast forward to where we're at now, that's significant and that's something to be celebrated.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the stigma we had, I mean, as I'm stepping on to get a different, a career in a different field,
Yeah.
when I got into cannabis, I was thinking, okay, well, you're making a decision here that you might not ever work in another field because you won't get a job, because it was very stigmatized,
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, and that's,
Mhm.
not at all the case today. We have people that work in drug policy in the administration. And so to the Supreme Court and Clarence Thomas, I mean, I think that is another um, I think this is another area that actually we should have some confidence around, is that conservatives in the courts, they want to protect states' rights because of, we don't have an opinion on all these other issues, but there are a number of issues that states' rights mean a lot to them, whether it be on LGBT issues or women's rights, reproductive rights issues, guns, all of these other issues that are frankly much more important to the conservatives than cannabis. So I think they understand, these originalists on the court understand that they can't undermine a state cannabis program and then not expect that precedent to then be used to undermine some other state autonomy in, frankly, taking away people's rights tends to be what they like, I'll say, but um, unfortunately, but that's, my personal opinion. So that is, I mean, that's another thing that we have in our corner, and it's important.
Absolutely. And you can give your personal opinions now, Aaron, okay? Just for the record. All right. Just like throw that out there.
I'm always accountable to somebody, though.
That's right. I know we all are, right? Hey, Bethany, I got to ask you, I'm going to direct question. When you found out that Aaron decided to resign and move on to another opportunity, what was your reaction?
Honestly, I think my heart sank a little just because I know how much how much progress we made, and then things started to become difficult during the pandemic and other issues. So I, I understood what was happening in the industry and how that would be ultimately impacting the association representing that industry. So, but I I have a feeling he's going to take all the energy from the last decade, 15 years actually, that you ran NCIA, and put it into an exciting new bucket of something that you're passionate about. So
He's going to try and
change is inevitable. We can't stay somewhere for, like, 40 years anymore. So it's
that's right.
important to mix things up from time to time. Although I say that as somebody who ended up staying in the cannabis industry after I left NCIA. So I'm still here.
Explain where you are, what you're doing. You might as well give a little plug to the group you're working with as communications director.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent most of my career in sort of the nonprofit policy advocacy world, but now I'm communications director for a manufacturing producer of edibles. They make joy bombs. It is a low dose edible, great for people who don't want to cut up gummies, or Aaron's a
Have
fan
some
of
right here.
joy bombs also. And I'm just really lucky to be working with a group of people that have also been in the industry a long time. They've seen it all, and they really just want to run a good company, provide a good product, be nice, and they've been expanding into multiple states. So I'm having a lot of fun with this company, supporting their marketing department, and also getting my project management skills revived, helping the company with that as well. So yeah, it's there's a lot of people that really prefer low dose. So a 2.5 milligram piece of candy is something a lot of people really are looking for out there. They don't want to start with 10 milligrams. And 2.5 really gives you the ability to customize your experience, to stack, as we call it, to get that perfect experience that you're looking for.
Yeah.
I'm
We're
really
all
glad you landed there, not only because it is, I think, probably my favorite edible product in Colorado because of that dosage. I have some here with me in California because left over from my weekend at the Dead shows at Golden Gate Park. And so, but not just for that reason, that I think that, when I met your boss, Don Novak, he was one of the first people I met in the Colorado cannabis industry. So was very much invested in Amendment 64 and the progress of the industry. And one thing that's been, frankly challenging is there so many in the industry aren't like that, and that just showed up to make some money and move on. And so I'm very happy to see that you're with Don, with a company that is invested in the industry. Of course, NCIA members, goes without saying. But seeing this as a social movement. This isn't just some other industry that you can come in and cash in and get out. This is an important social movement. And I know you know that, and you found a company that has those values.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel grateful about that. So yeah, of course they're based here in Colorado, so I get to stay here in Denver, but also get to enjoy watching the company expand to states like Oregon, New Jersey, Massachusetts. Where else are we going? I think we're in New Mexico, Oklahoma. They also have a hemp line of joy bombs as well for the states that don't have legal regulated programs. So yeah, to your point, they've been around a long time. They started in the medical program before there was recreational, and they've managed to stay not only afloat, but to succeed and expand. So I'm excited to be working with them.
That's great. And where in Massachusetts can I get them? Do you have off the top of your head? Do you have a dispensary that I can go? Obviously, I could use something called Google and find it, I suppose, right?
Yep, and the Joyables is the company overall brand for Joy Bombs. There's a Find Joy Bombs near you map on our website, so making it easy for people to find those products.
Right. And start low, go slow. I love the 2.5 milligrams. That's the entry level dose. I think the American Nurses Association have adopted that. Certainly, the Cannabis Nurses Association as an entry level dose. And of course, if you are using an edible, it's a delayed reaction. So if you're a first timer and you did 2.5 milligrams and you don't feel anything, I would not go after that second one. I would actually wait till the next time and certainly give it a good 2 or even 3 hours if it's the first time you've ever dosed a product with THC in it. And that's just a word to the wise, if you will, from someone who's been around the block a lot longer than both of you together. Okay, let's just say. I do want to bring up one more thing because it's actually everything's doom and gloom, and I don't really want to get into the air wellness shutdown because it's another one of those things. Oh God, another multi-state operator is basically throwing their stuff out and cutting their losses. But cannabis social clubs are now open in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Okay. Now, I've been to Atlantic City, New Jersey a couple of times now for cannabis events. One was a NECAN event and one was an MJ Impact event. And I think it is absolutely the perfect place on the East Coast to have this because they have everything else there. They have your casinos, they have the ocean, they have really, truly inexpensive lodging in Atlantic City. And it's a great now I think it can be even more of a destination for people on the East Coast who are looking for where can I go consume privately and legally and with others that I really don't know. The future of these cannabis lounges. Massachusetts finally got their act together and actually now has 3 different licenses that you can apply for. Now, granted, there's still another public comment period. I'm amazed. It's been 6 years. Do we really need to hear more from the public on this? But anyway, I understand, we have to go through the cannabis standard time bureaucracy, guys, right? I mean, come on. Cannabis social clubs, Aaron, what's the future?
Well, I certainly hope the future is something that looks more like a bar where you can you purchase and consume and hang out and maybe do other things like get a meal or play some pinball or some, other things that you can do in a bar setting. That's what you should have. I don't and I won't even claim to know the regulations in New Jersey. I hope that it's approaching that. But what I've seen too much, go in other states is that, they're so restrictive that these businesses can't really succeed because they can't sell anything other than, maybe some cannabis supplies, or they can't serve food, they can't do this, they can't do that, and then it becomes very, very difficult to survive. So I hope to see something more akin to bars. And even in that, as we see the beverage category really take off,
Mhm.
we might actually get there. Well, we have you have liquid cannabis products that can be sold alongside alcohol, go figure. So that is, I hope that's the future. I don't know we're there yet in Atlantic City, but I hope that that's where we're going.
Absolutely. Bethany, have you ever been to Atlantic City?
I have not.
Yeah, I knew where you were from, so I figured I'd take a shot. Um,
No. But we have a couple of cannabis consumption lounges here in Denver, and I've visited a couple of them, and everyone feels a little bit different, has a slightly different business model. Um, and it's interesting in what Aaron was just saying about wanting it to be more like a bar, and many people probably disagree with me on this. I also would like alcohol and cannabis products to be able to be commingled at the same establishment. But of course, we did not get that. We got one or the other. So you can't mix. But for me, I would really like a world where a consumer has a choice. Maybe they just want to have one or two drinks and then consume cannabis the rest of their visit at that bar, or vice versa, but to allow people to choose their own experience.
And
Yeah, and
go
people, I
ahead.
mean, they are choosing to do that already, right? They're going out in the alley behind the bar and smoking a joint and then going back in. Like everyone does that.
Absolutely.
So like all we're doing by not allowing it, legally is actually making it so that the proprietor of the establishment doesn't know how much someone is consumed. And this way, yeah, by making it legal, they know. Then they know when to cut someone off. And
Right.
it's working in Minnesota, I would say. That's the one place I've seen actually. And I wasn't even thinking about cannabis use lounges because they don't seem like cannabis use lounges. You go to a brewery and you can choose beer or a cannabis soda. In that case, it's hemp. And it doesn't. You're just at a bar.
Right.
That's where it should be.
The fact that
Right.
they draw the line on food items, making them a lot of them prepackaged food items, whether it's, your munchies, that are in the vending machines, or pre-produced sandwiches are also, I think it's a part of the Massachusetts.
Hmm.
Here. But here's a couple of things that I want to share with both of you guys. We all know on this, and I'd be shocked to hear that you don't actually have ever no experience at all with alcohol. Come on, we all have. We've all gone through this. We all learned by doing what our limits were to make sure that we consumed alcohol relatively responsibly. Certainly, when Mothers Against Drunk Driving came in board, it changed everything, and everybody got more conscious about the dangers of driving under the influence of alcohol. And all of our lawmakers and all of the regulators love to try to regulate cannabis like alcohol. And I'm not quite sure that really makes a lot of sense, especially if you understand the plant and how it works with the human body. It is still the same concept, guys, because we've all had those edible stories where we've done too much of an edible out of the gate because you don't feel anything and the delayed reaction. So we're all going through this self-medication discovery period right now with cannabis, whether it's a new state or an older state. Look, it's not the same stuff that I was using in the 70s and 80s, guys. It's definitely not. Okay. And that being said, the same thing's happening with trying to identify drivers who are operating under the influence of cannabis and then answer the question, are you impaired or not? So let's start. Bethany, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind. What's your feeling about how do we go about either proving impairment and making it educating the public enough and our law enforcement and our lawmakers that this isn't the same product. It doesn't impact the human body the same way.
Yeah, great question. Also, not something I'm not a super expert on. However, to your point, alcohol metabolizes in the human body much differently than cannabis. Alcohol moves through one's system at a rate that's very different than cannabis, which stays in your system a lot longer. I believe I heard it's
30,
stored in your fat cells.
for 30 days. 30 days.
30 days is a whole lot longer than a few beers stays in your system. So that's not an accurate way to measure. If we're talking about impairment, then what is somebody's like reaction speed or something? I'm not sure what the answer is, but if somebody's eyes are half closed and it takes them 20 seconds to hear what you said, yeah, they probably shouldn't be behind the wheel. But, to your point about we, people learning their tolerance, learning their limits.
Mhm.
So somebody may be able to, smoke a joint and then, drive down the street and be perfectly fine because their reaction speed hasn't been impacted. They're fine. So everyone's a little bit different. So there's no catch-all solution for this. It's going to be really tough to find a solution that's fair and accurate,
Right,
in the same way that we have alcohol blood percentage levels.
right.
It's just a different physiological process.
Okay. So, Aaron, should we regulate it like alcohol?
I would love to get there, actually. I mean, we've been talking about regulating it like alcohol for this, for our whole movement, right? But we're not there yet. Cannabis is regulated like plutonium. I don't know. It's not alcohol.
That was my joke for a long time.
I mean, yeah, right. I mean, I'm here in California. I can go to the grocery store down the street. I can buy 100 proof whiskey at that store, pay, a few cents in taxes,
Wow.
and get a sandwich on my way out as well. But if I want to buy cannabis, I'm paying, double digit taxes, and I have to go into a store that's has somebody who's heavily armed guarding it, and cameras everywhere, check my ID 2 times. So that's not alcohol. So if we can get to the place where it's regulated like alcohol, I think we've won. I think that you make a good point that it's safer than alcohol and perhaps the regulations should be even more lax than alcohol. But I'd be happy if we can at least get to parity there, and that means seeing these products on the shelves at grocery stores and, oh my gosh, gas stations, all of those things, but only sold to adults over 21 and in a responsible way.
Right, 100% on that. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this thing up. I have plenty more to say about it. And before we wrap it up, okay, Aaron dropped in the fact that he was at the 3-day Dead and Company concert this past weekend at the Golden Gate Park. Now, Aaron, as somebody who has loved this band for most of my life, okay, we did cover the event, and I actually got an opportunity to interview the CEO of Embark, which was the dispensary of record at both the California State Fair and at the Dead concert,
Oh yeah.
right? So that was really cool. Lauren Carpenter is the CEO, and her word when I asked her, she goes, "What? How do you do this? How do you deal with all this?" She goes, "It's very simple. It's patience." Patience. Right, guys? I mean, can we all relate to this? And I said, "Oh, you're talking about cannabis standard time. Just one step forward, two steps
Yep, yep.
backward." I mean, isn't that it? I mean,
It's amazing. They're selling cannabis at the Golden Gate Park. I brought my own, but but the and it was actually funny because you kind of had to go up into the bushes to buy it. Which I think was probably, I don't know if that was on purpose, but I thought it was a clever nod to, the way that it, used to
used
be.
to
You'd
be.
have to go up in the bushes and buy it from, somebody legally. Now you're going up there and buying it from, state licensed provider. But yeah, it was a great show. I'm sure a lot of cannabis folks were there. I saw some friends from Colorado that were out there as well, and hope we can continue enjoying shows like that.
Absolutely. And to coin a phrase of the late great Jerry, what a long, strange trip it's been for all of us who have followed this band and how it has reflected the changes in society as emerging out of San Francisco's counter revolution, the counterculture, along with Jefferson Airplane and a few others out of San Francisco. And now above board and celebrating 60 years of great music, great shows, great times. And I tell you, I got to see a little bit of the live stream, and it's the people. Aaron, it's the people I was looking for. Had I known, I would have looked for you. But I mean, it's the people. Did you? Let me ask you a question. Did you wear a tie-dye shirt to the concert?
I actually didn't, but it was cold out. It was San Francisco. It's like would Mark Twain say, like the coldest,
Yeah,
the coldest winter he's ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco. It
absolutely.
was
We call
cold.
that that's the marine layer, isn't it? The marine
Yes, it
layer.
was
There's
very
like
foggy.
right. And there's always like 6 or 7 different pockets of atmosphere going on in that whole Bay Area. It's a fascinating place. And it was certainly good to see a little bit of it and wave the flag as if I was there. And I actually got to see the playlist. And I love love that. And here's another thing about Dead and Company. John Mayer does a great job as lead guitar. He really does. I mean, he's not Jerry, we know, but he does a great job, right?
Yeah, he was great. He was great.
All
And
right. So
turned me on to the Billy Strings, who I never really heard before. Came out and played a Wharf Rat on the first night with them. That was one that make sure you catch that on YouTube or whatever, because that was a great song, a great highlight of the whole thing, I thought.
there you go. Hey, the highlight is hanging out with you, Aaron, over the last couple of months and chit-chatting and getting to know you a little bit more as a person. And as always, you're always welcome back on this
I'd
show.
love to come back from once in a while with you there.
And we wish you the best of luck with Unite America. And really, you're going to need the luck because you've got a big job ahead of you. But we think if anybody can do it, you can do it, man. And I'm behind you in whatever way I can. So for Bethany Moore, Aaron Smith, I'm Jimmy Young. Remember that this program is supported by Buds Group, a tri-state area consulting group in accounting and compliance and legal and all that stuff that you will need. You can find it at budsgroup.com. That's budsgrp.com. And also a reminder to like, share, and subscribe to this content. Oh, and give a plug out to the Maverick PR group from Colorado too, because after all, Colorado seems to be like the center of the cannabis universe, guys. Is that okay? I think the California people will probably be pissed at me for saying that. But, you guys, there's something to be said about Colorado. They're very, very proud of the fact that they're known as the cannabis state in one way or another. So for Bethany and Aaron, I'm Jimmy. Thank you again for watching, listening, and remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Accounting Buds has grown into Buds Group, the same award-winning quality, now with more service offerings. Buds Group, your best buds in the biz.
Looking for PR that over-delivers on expectations? At Maverick Public Relations, they pair big agency experience with personalized attention. From launching award-winning brands to securing top-tier media hits, their data-driven communications team helps visionary leaders and entrepreneurs rise above the media noise. Maverick PR is responsive, collaborative, and relentless about results and ROI. Visit themaverickpr.com and make headlines together.